Manifesto at cabinet level to champion these policies in Westminster?
Okay, let me answer those questions in order. Look, Joe, your question on the EMA. Where's Joe who asked that question? Yeah, on the EMA. Look, this is a tough one because I didn't like the fact that the EMA was abolished. I didn't like the way it was done. At the moment, we haven't found a way of restoring it. We want to do everything we can for students in college. I mean, one thing that we've said, which I think is really important for the future, is that we're going to protect investment in colleges. I mean, the Conservatives have this plan, which I don't think that many people know about, which is actually to cut investment in the education budget. And they've actually said nothing about the early years and colleges. They've made a sort of promise on schools, which isn't really a promise. But I think it's really worrying what they're planning in relation to colleges. So, look, one thing we'll do is we'll protect the funding that goes into colleges. On the question that was asked about English and an English degree and all of that, I think there is a bit of a danger actually about the way this debate is going. Look, I'm in favour of STEM subjects. I think they are important. But I think the government has an incredibly sort of narrow-minded view about what the future of the country is about. You know, creative subjects, including English, the arts subjects, are incredibly important to the future of our country. And you just need to talk to people in the creative industries, for example, to know that's the case. And so, you know, on the tuition fee, you know, that's why I think it was the right decision for us to, if you like, reduce it sort of flat rate from £9,000 to £6,000, not to sort of pick and choose between different subjects. Because I think, you know, I think STEM subjects are important, but I think arts subjects also have an incredibly important economic value as well as a value for the character of our country. On the question about sort of Nick Clegg and all of that and promises, look, it is an important question. I mean, look, young people have to judge me on the manifesto we're putting forward today, and you know, I faced a decision about whether to carry on with the £6,000, and I did. And one of the reasons, I think it's the right thing to do, but one of the reasons I did it was for precisely the purpose that you say, which I think is incredibly important we keep our promises. And, you know, trust in politics is so low. I often say this, that it didn't just damage Nick Clegg what Nick Clegg did, it clearly did damage him, but it damaged everyone in politics, because it made people think, oh, well, you just can't trust anyone in politics. So look, these are promises I intend to keep. And then the question about, from the British Youth Council, look, I'll look at this idea of a dedicated youth minister. You're also asking at cabinet level. I think it's a really important thing that we've got to get right, which is putting the voice of young people at the heart of what we do as a government. And you know, no government that had young people at the heart of its decision making would have abolished the EMA in the way that David Cameron and George Osborne did. I mean, it's not the fact they abolished it, but the way they did it as well. And so, look, I take this point incredibly seriously. I sort of think of this as look, it's an incredibly fragile object, trust in politics, and it's pretty shattered, and we've got to put it back together. And there's stages we've got to go through to put it back together, keeping the promises, which goes to the question I was asked, and having the voice of young people as part of our decision making. Doesn't mean we'll always agree, but having it at the heart of what we do, and we'll seek to do that. Let me take another round. I'm going to go to the left. There's a gentleman in the second row.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm from the University of Lincoln. I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a mild form of autistic spectrum disorder. I've seen a real difficult fight to get disabled students allowance, and the Equality Act of 2010 prevents me from being able to serve in the armed forces, which is something I'd always wanted to do. What will the Labour Party do to improve the situation for people with autism and mental health at large?
Okay, it's a good point, and it is covered in our manifesto. I'm sorry, there's a lady. Yeah, there's a lady in. Yep.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and I work for the trade union Usdaw. I want to pick you up on the citizenship point that you made.
Yeah.
Because I travel around a lot of different stores, speaking to a lot of different young people, not just about the union movement, but about the wider Labour movement as well. And one of the things I've picked up on is there's not really much political education in secondary school. And so when I go to talk to them about the Labour movement or political parties, they don't seem to know who they are, what they do, or what they stand for. And I find once you talk to them about what Labour stands for, fairness, equality, justice, they agree. And I think if we could get a little bit more of education in school around this, then you'd have a lot more supporters for Labour, but also a more educated society on politics.
Good, very good question, Naomi. Thank you. And then just behind you.
Hi, my name's Adam. It's great to hear
What's your name, sorry?
Adam.
Adam, hi.
It's great to hear you talk about climate change.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on what you do for green energy, green jobs and green investment in the country.
Okay, and then, gentleman behind you. And then we'll take the chap in the blue as well. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Stefan. I'm currently nearing the end of my GCSEs, and next year I hope to take A-levels. And I was reading about Labour's plan to continue, have it so it's compulsory education for maths and English until 18. And I was wondering why this would be necessary and how it would fit in with my options as well.
Right, that's a good question. And, and then the gentleman in the blue.
Hi, I'm Lewis and I'm a student at BG. You mentioned a lot about...
What are you studying here, Lewis?
Education studies and special needs.
Excellent.
There's been a lot of talk recently about the living wage, and you recently mentioned a guarantee on apprenticeships. Is Labour going to be taking any action to raise the minimum wage for apprentices to their respective age groups?
To the
same level as their respective age groups?
Sure. Okay, let me... shall I have a go at those? Actually, Ivan, do you want to come in on one or two of those questions?
Thanks. I think on the young people's engagement in politics, it's frankly shocking the lack of education around democracy, politics and active citizenship in many, many schools up and down the country. 20% of the young people unlikely to vote at the election say so because they don't know what politics is, they don't know how to vote, they don't know where to go and vote. It is as basic as that. Now, what our commitment in this manifesto is, which is very, very important, is we're going to do a root and branch review of youth services, and as part of that, review citizenship education. And it is so obvious that at the point we introduce the right to vote at 16 and 17, alongside that, ensuring that we increase young people's awareness and participation and engagement with politics and the democratic process. Because if we simply introduce votes at 16 and 17 and don't do that alongside that, we'll actually miss some of the opportunities that are available to us. On the question of the young youth rate minimum wage and the apprenticeship rate, in the manifesto today we announced that we are going to increase that at a rate which is consistent with the adult rate. We're not going to be able to initially equalise, but it's one of the things over time that we're going to ask the Low Pay Commission to look at. So the youth rate, the apprenticeship rate will increase at the same rate as the adult rate, but we aren't going to be able to equalise. But we're going to ask the Low Pay Commission to look at this. We accept that it's fallen behind over a far too long period of time.
Great, thanks. And so let me then deal with the other questions. Josh's question, it's one of the things, I don't know what Ivan's experience has been, but as I've gone around the country, one of the biggest issues that's been raised by young people is around mental health services. And, everywhere I go, and this is one of those hidden issues that mainstream politics has not talked about nearly enough. We've started talking about mental health services, but actually we've not talked as a Cinderella service, but we've not talked about the thing that is the most Cinderella service, which is child and adolescent mental health services. And this is our false economy and a disaster for our country, because if we don't spend properly on child and adolescent mental health services, or it's terrible for young people, obviously, and that's morally wrong, but it's also financially wrong as well, because it means you build up massive costs. And I've met so many young people who say, look, if only I got help earlier, it would have helped me out. So that's why we commit in this manifesto to raise the proportion of the overall health budget spent on child and adolescent mental health services for precisely the reasons that you say. And it is incredibly important. And look, this is about having all our young people as inclusive members of society. By the way, I will also say this to the young people here and to the older people as well. Look, this is about what school is about. Look, school is about passing exams, right? But it's not just about passing exams. And, I think that it is so important that schools and teachers are conscious of these mental health issues, because too often I meet young people who say, well, I had some issues, but my school was totally blind to those issues and didn't pick them up and didn't help me and was just didn't hear my needs. So I think it's a really important and relevant question that you asked. On Adam's question on climate change, I'm pleased to talk about that. You know, this is a very important year for climate change, Adam, and we need a Prime Minister who's going to show leadership and going to take the Paris conference that we have at the end of this year seriously, and I will do that. And I will work with other leaders to get the best possible deal we can on international climate change, and I'm going to lead by example. Because we're saying, and I think we're the first government in the world to make this commitment, that by 2030 we will take the carbon out of our electricity supply, so-called decarbonisation by 2030. And you know, this is important because, look, this goes to political principle. I mean, I will not be a leader, and you'll guess who I'm talking about here, who will put a wind turbine on my roof before an election and then after an election say, let's have a moratorium on wind turbines. That's what David Cameron's doing. And look, you can't lead. I've been in these negotiations. The first question that China or India or other developing countries will ask, the first question they ask is, and I remember this from the negotiations in Copenhagen, they say, well, they used to say, well, you're Britain, actually, we'll listen to what you have to say on climate change because they're actually doing something about it. But they won't listen to what we have to say if they think, well, you're not doing anything about it. Because they'll say, well, hang on a minute, don't lecture us when actually you're not really taking action. So this thing matters here, but some people say, well, you know, Britain's only 2% of global emissions, so what does what we do matter? It obviously matters in what happens to the world as a whole, but it massively matters to the ability of us to shape a successful outcome in Paris and beyond. On Stefan's point, I'm glad you've raised this. This is about saying that people have got to get to the basics they need in maths and English. It's not saying every person has to do maths and English, whatever the standard they reach. But it is about saying, look, we don't want you to go out into the world without the basics of maths and English. Let's take another. Oh, lots of people now want to ask questions. Yeah, there's a lady here.
Hi, Mr. Miliband.
Hello.
I'm Hur, and I'm 13. I'm from Leicester. Firstly, can I just say thanks to yourself for all your support to my project called Let's Talk About Politics and for inviting me to see yourself at PMQs. My question to yourself is, how will you make yourself accountable to young people as Prime Minister? And also, how will you ensure that young people like myself from average backgrounds and non-Oxbridge degrees aspire to inherit your job after you?
Okay. I'm really glad I called on you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beth and I'm from the National Citizen Service, and you obviously talk about having an education or an environment where you learn more than just the basics in school academically. UKIP have just come out and said they'd actually abolish the National Citizen Service. So I just wondered, would you continue to support the programme? Would you continue to enrol it out and roll it out further so that more people can get the fantastic opportunities that I've had?
Why do they want to abolish it? I mean, I know it's a strange question to ask because it's probably...
UKIP's demographic isn't really young people,
No,
is it?
right, okay. I wish I'd had that line last night. I would have, I would have used it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matt, and I was just wondering, you've made a lot of pledges about education today, and I was just wondering where you're going to get the funding for that from.
Okay, yep, good question, Matt. Yep, question over here.
Hi, I'm Matt. Another one.
Right.
I'm looking at joining the police in a few years. I'm wondering what can you do to help improve, like, protect the police and other services like that?
Okay, thanks, Matt. Number two. Yeah, there's a lady over there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm the Vice President Welfare and Community Officer at Lincoln Students' Union. I want to pick up on what you talked about around housing. Over probably 90% of the issues and concerns that I get from students are around housing, about poor standards of living, about feeling as though they've been ripped off by their agencies or landlords. And I just wanted to understand a bit more about your plans to be able to protect students. For a lot of them, it's the first time they've ever gone out into renting, and it's a big step, and I think that students need a lot more protection within that.
Thanks, Olivia. There's a gentleman who's got his hand up over there, yeah, in the green T-shirt.
Hello, my name's Joe. I'm a student here. I'm doing a